right. Good morning. Oh, my glasses are foggy. Good morning, everybody. How's it going? Bet you thought I was going to be an hour late today. Because for those of us in the US, it is daylight savings time. And my glasses are foggy. Come on, unfog. There we go. How's it going? Boy, that's quite the intro. Hello, welcome. My name is Angela. I'm a front-end developer and a software engineer in St. Paul, Minnesota. On this channel, we practice vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And for those of us who live in the United States, it is daylight savings time today. So it's spring, so we spring ahead, which means we lose an hour of sleep. So that was literally a rude awakening this morning because I forgot about it. And I still have actual clocks in my home. So when I'm done streaming today, I'm going to have to spend time going around the house, resetting all the clocks, which is fine. But I also have an alarm clock on my bedside. So when I woke up this morning, my brain had to reconcile between what I was seeing on the clock on the wall and the alarm clock that automatically updated. It was a whole thing. So here we are. How's it going? Welcome. Today is Sunday, March 8th. And this is day 2 of a 6-day sprint. Not doing anything special. We're just working on the project that we started what is this? What is this today? This is, I don't even know. No, that's not what I want. I want my channel. There we go. This is part 11. So we started this about a week and a half ago, something like that. And we're moving right along. We spent a lot of time working on the navigation. We've basically built the entire home page. Yeah, it's looking really good. I will say, I was looking at this last night on my iPhone. We definitely need to do a thorough QA of the home page. Nothing crazy, but we need to do that eventually. I really today would like to clean up we need to make sure that these page links match what is actually happening in the navigation. Yeah, so there's that. What do we have here? So we need to do a 404 page. We need to do about, blog, contact, page template, portfolio. And then we're going to build an inner page for blog, and we're going to build an inner page for portfolio. That's sort of my final decision on that. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus the home page 9. So we'll have 9 pages. Yeah, that's really good. And since this is turning out to be a more complex site than what we normally do, which I want to start doing more. I like doing landing pages, but I want to also do more complex full site builds. I bought a domain name, coloradowebproject.com. So I bought a .com. So when we do deployment, I think we'll set up a new droplet and we'll do like a fresh droplet just for this site, because I think that this is going to be a great project video. I think this will be a good one. So hold please. Hold for one moment. I have allergies. I need to blow my nose. Coffee fixes everything. And Malik Robinson is here. Hello, Malik. Go Elmo. Mod in the chat today. We love Malik. Malik is he's a fresh grad. He graduated in 2025, and he's in his first web design internship. And From everything that he's shared so far, he seems to really be enjoying the experience. And he's saying things like, oh, I have to schedule a meeting and make sure everybody's available. Oh, so adorable. I love that. And I think he's going to be getting some, hopefully, development tasks. I think you're more on the design side right now. Hopefully, getting some development tasks here eventually, which I would love to hear about your experiences with that. Do me a favor before we get started, if you would be so kind to like this video. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Liking the video helps the algorithm, or the video, the live stream, the replay, what have you, helps the algorithm, helps push this type of content out to people who might be interested in this type of thing. Like I said, this is a vanilla channel. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the three things that the browser renders natively. Certainly, you're going to need to know a framework or two, plus a library, in order to get a job as a front-end developer. There is no denying that. I personally have never used React. At my last job, we used Vue. I really like Vue. We were in the process of moving from Vue 2 to Vue 3 right when I was leaving. I've worked on projects with Foundation and Bootstrap. I've never used Tailwind. And I've never built a project from scratch using anything other than Sass, really for organization and a little bit of nesting and, well, some includes and mix-ins, things like that. And basically vanilla JavaScript. I switched to vanilla last summer just specifically for this channel and a lot of my personal projects, because I felt like my nesting was really getting out of hand. Like, I just wasn't doing a good job with my specificity. I was overly specific. I had to write more CSS than I needed to. Things just kind of felt messy and out of control. So switching to vanilla for me was a way to kind of just get back to basics. And I ended up, I'm embarrassed to say this, but after I've been doing this now for almost 13 years, so last summer it would have been 12 years. After that amount of time to not really understand specificity and inheritance as well as I should have for how long I've been doing this. And once I started doing vanilla, that stuff really clicked into place. Also really understanding the user agent style sheet and what are the browser's default styles, and just basic things. Like, I remember last year discovering, because I had never checked, that SVGs were display inline by default. Oh my God, what a pain in the ass SVGs are to style if you leave them as display inline. They're so difficult, they're unruly, a pain in my ass. Once I figured out that they were by default display inline and I started changing them to display block, or sometimes display inline block, but usually display block, it completely changed my life and how I interact with SVGs. We use SVGs for everything. Sometimes our logos are SVGs, icons, everything. It's so important to be able to really style an SVG and be able to control those, how those SVGs behave in our layouts. So difficult if you leave it display inline. So it was little stuff like that once I switched over to vanilla, I just started to get a better handle on things. I started to do a much better job with specificity. I started to do a much better job being specific enough, but not too specific. It's actually a little hard to describe if you haven't had the experience. And that's the whole point of this channel and what I do 4 days a week or 6 days in a row, like I'm doing this week. It's to just promote a little bit of vanilla building. So if you have a desire to get better at this, to have a little deeper understanding, just do 1 or 2 projects vanilla. I promise you will get better. You will develop that understanding. And if you don't care, then that's cool. not everybody wants to get better at it. That's for sure. But I'm just here to like hype you up if you do and show you what you can do without a compiler, without Node, without a package manager, without a framework, without a library. You can do a lot. You can do a lot. Please don't forget that the browser renders 3 very important things natively: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Right? The internet. We call it the internet. So, we need to do a little bit of one last thing, because this actually seems to be working. If you want to follow me over on Instagram, Angela J. Holden is my handle there. I don't post as much as I would like to. I would like to do reels more often. I just don't seem to get around to it, but I hang out over there quite a bit. If you want to follow me, go ahead. The content that I do make on Instagram is kind of like lifestyle dev adjacent, I would call it. The pure dev content it's way too niche for Instagram, especially reels. So I try to keep it more lifestyle oriented. And if you want to get in touch with me, my DMs are you are welcome to DM me on Instagram if you have questions about anything that I'm doing on the stream and things like that. So there's that. Okay. We need to do a little bit of maintenance before we can start creating inner pages. And what I would like to do today is create the page template. The page template will also be used for the contact page and for the about page and for the 404 page. So let's work on the page template today. I also want to make sure that we're doing some really comprehensive styling. So I want to grab some let's do this, kitchen sink HTML. Wait a second, kitchen sink cookies. Kitchen sink cookie recipe. Is that just cookies with a lot of stuff in it? What is this? Hang on. Kitchen sink cookies. What's in these cookies? Yes, we have to hear your... Okay. Unsalted butter, flour, baking soda, kosher salt, light brown sugar, white sugar, egg, pure vanilla, mix-ins. These have a great sweet and salty balance with chocolate chips, toffee bits, potato chips, and chopped pretzels. And then flaked sea salt. Okay, so it's the salty, crunchy stuff. Interesting. Okay. I could get behind that, but that's not what we're here for. Kitchen sink HTML. And ads for kitchen sinks. Of course. What if we just ask ChatGPT for some kitchen sink HTML? Can you please give me some basic kitchen sink HTML? Please make sure it is copy paste. So what I'm doing here is I just want some HTML that covers a variety of elements, and then we will write styles. The point being that since this is an open source project and I'm going to make a big project video out of this, like an edited focused project video out of this, if people find this and want to fork it and use it for their own projects, they would have styles that extend beyond the type of content that I'm going to put in here, because I'm not going to put in, this isn't actually a website for me. I'm using lorem ipsum. So when we get a little kitchen sink HTML, and it's giving me, so we don't need this up here, right? Because we already did navigation. So we're going to want everything in here. for the most part. What is this? Oh, yeah. So this is preformatted code section. UL, an unordered list, an ordered list, a description list. I'll be honest, I'm not going to style a description list. They are a pain in the ass. Who uses DLs anymore? We'll style a table for sure. Yeah, we could style some media controls. A form, some form elements. Yep, we're going to do a form. So we've already styled a newsletter sign up form, but we are going to style a contact form, but we could make sure that we are including some more comprehensive styles. A field set, yes. Yeah, okay. This I'm down with this. So I really just want everything inside. I don't know. Do we want to do a DL? We've done that before. This isn't the first time I've done kitchen sink. It's not the first time I've done kitchen sink HTML styling. Let's just put this here. Okay. And we're not going to use IDs. We'll use classes. So we'll add some classes and we'll do some styling. Okay. So we'll tuck this away. So we're going to build our page template today. We'll get started with that. We're going to use the kitchen sink HTML and do some styling. Before I start creating, here's the thing about static websites that arguably is a bit of a downside. I will concede this. If I was building this website for myself, I would use PHP because it's you can deploy a PHP website to a basic LAMP stack, which is what I do for deployment: Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. And then you can run it on MAMP. You can't run it with live server in VS Code, but you could just install the free version of MAMP and it's very easy to run. And the benefit of PHP for web developers is that you have very easy templating with PHP includes. I really don't want to do that here. I feel very strongly about making sure that I just had a thought. Making sure everything is static, doesn't rely on anything other than vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But I had this just the briefest of thoughts about using JavaScript to generate the markup for the navigation. So we only have to manage one set of navigation because we're going to have 9 pages, and once you start copying pages to make pages, you are managing 9 headers and 9 footers. So if your navigation changes, no, we'll be fine. We can do it. We can do it. We've already said what we want the pages to be. I'm not wavering on that. I believe in us. I think we can do it. Okay. So let's create links for the navigation. The other thing that I want to do is I don't know what I was thinking putting in a Facebook icon. I don't want to link to my Facebook, and I don't have like a Facebook page. I have a private Facebook, and I log into Facebook like once every 18 months. It's absolutely pointless. So let's replace this with an X icon, because I never post on X, but I do technically have an X. We'll update the GitHub link, Instagram link, the LinkedIn link, Actually, you know what we could do is we could put in, maybe we should just put in a YouTube icon here. That would be better. Let's do that. So let's update this, and then let's make sure that our footer social icons they match what's in the header, but everything also needs a link. And then let's make sure that this, which is basically the top level navigation, also matches this. And then once we do these couple of things, we are ready to start making copies of the home page. And then all we do is swap out everything that's inside the main element right here. This is why I do this. Our header is done, our footer is done. Everything that happens on an inner page happens inside the main element. That's exactly why I take this approach, and I do a complete home page first before I do anything else. Yeah, so let's do that. Let's do that. Ionicons. Do they have a dedicated YouTube? They do. Okay, we'll just swap this out. Easy peasy. Projects, Colorado, SVG. All right, here we go. And this is Aria hidden true. And this is YouTube. This is our screen reader only text. And then let's go ahead and we'll copy the URLs for the social media links. And I'm going to have these open in a new tab. So I'm going to say target equals blank. So here's GitHub. Let's grab that. And I'm going to have this open in a new page. Here's Instagram. I'm going to do this one privately because I don't know what's going to pop up, and I don't know what you're going to see. Turns out nothing. But you know, better safe than sorry. Right? Not everything is content. And LinkedIn. Sure, let's look at the LinkedIn dumpster fire together. God, I hate LinkedIn. But you can't really live without it, can ya? Sure. Love it. Okay, let's go back to, where's my page? Okay. Okay, there we go. And then let's make sure that we don't have any inline styles for this YouTube icon. I don't think so. So I think this all looks good. Beautiful. So let's make sure these work. Yep. That works. Click all the links, people. Click all the links. Do not assume that they work. Just don't make that assumption. Okay. And then I'm pretty sure we can just swap this out in the footer. This is why I try to reuse as much stuff as possible. Let's take a look at our footer. Yep, everything looks good. Let's click these and make sure that they work. Yes. Oops. Yes. Yes. And yes. Beautiful. Love it. Okay, now let's make sure that our navigation in our header matches, the top level navigation in the header matches the navigation in the footer. So we said home portfolio. Let's do this. So home portfolio blog about page template and contact. Home portfolio blog about page template and contact. About and page, oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay. There we go. Okay. Good. Okay. So now we can make a copy of the index.html into the page template folder. Well, actually, no. We have to actually update these links first. Yeah. I made that mistake last time. So we need to make sure that these links are correct. So I think for the home link, I think I need to do it for, it needs to be the root of the current directory, because on GitHub pages, it's not the root, right? So we need to do this. Also, on the home page, that's the active link. So we need to have a class of active on the list item for the actual page. That's really easy to do with JavaScript too. You can just loop through your links, your navigation links, and you can compare it to whatever the URL of the page is and add a class. But since our navigation is static, we're just going to do this manually. There's no reason to use JavaScript for that. So now this has an active class because it is the home page. And then this would be, because we do have our directories, we've made our directories, but we haven't put anything in those directories yet. So we're just going to do portfolio. I usually leave the slash off the end. Well, should I? I usually, we'll do it that way. Portfolio slash blog slash about slash. It's nice in VS Code that you know you're getting the path right when you're doing, I guess technically these are relative. This isn't an absolute path, it's a relative path, but you still at least get a little hint here to make sure you're doing it right, which is nice. Okay, so again, there's nothing in these folders yet. That's completely fine. We will add them. Does everybody know? Tell me, forgive me if you already know this. We'll go here. Do people know what the browser is looking for inside of a directory? I was thinking about this the other day about how if you use a lot of frameworks, you use like routes or routing, how much do people really sit and think about their URL structure? So for example, there's some SEO considerations here. We are going to build an inner portfolio page. So I'm going to build one portfolio page, but it's going to link to all four of these things. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to have a subnav, a nice juicy subnav here. So it's just going to be a template. It's going to link to all four of those things. But when you have subnavigation, that URL should match the structure of the subnavigation. So this URL right here would be coloradowebproject.com/portfolio/portfolio item, because that's the structure of the subnavigation. So portfolio item as a directory will live inside portfolio item, the portfolio folder. And then how does the browser know if you have multiple pages inside of a directory? How does the browser know which page is the home page for that directory? It's looking for one of three things: index.html, home.html, default.html. And index.html is by far the standard, but you could have any of those three things. So in the portfolio folder, you can have, you could decide to structure your website. You could decide that this is going to be home is index.html, portfolio is portfolio.html, blog is blog.html, about.html, page template.html, contact.html. I think a lot of people structure their sites like that. I don't think it's an SEO friendly way of doing it. And if you do it this way, where you have a folder or a directory with an index.html, the browser knows to pull up index.html and you have a cleaner URL. You don't have to have the .html. It's not the end of the world if you do, but you don't have to have it. So I'm just curious, do people spend time thinking about that? Because that was a thing that we talked about all the time at St. Thomas, and that I personally thought about all the time, even from the beginning when I started learning. Because when I started learning in 2009 and 2010, we didn't have frameworks. This is a good point. I'm going to digress for a second. I just thought of this. One of the reasons that I'm just not into frameworks, I don't love using them, they're not my go-to, is because when I started learning, it's not how I learned this is like literally how I learned how to do things. Yes, I did jump into WordPress very early into my career, and I don't regret that at all, but there were no JavaScript frameworks. They did not exist. So if you were doing web development, you were either building vanilla or you were in a CMS like WordPress, Drupal, Joomla. I did spend a year of my life on Joomla. And I was always thinking about URLs and URL structures. And when I got to St. Thomas, that's when because we had an SEO team at St. Thomas who was like, yeah, if you have subnavigation, the URL structure has to match the subnavigation for SEO purposes, which in hindsight makes perfect sense, but I didn't know that when I started working there. So anyways, okay. Small digression, but that's okay. So that means, here's our top level navigation items. So here is the portfolio. Here are the portfolio items. So it's going to be portfolio item. And then portfolio item is going to have an index.html. So we can copy these because we're just going to use one template for all four. Same with the blog. Oh, one moment. Okay. So same with the blog. Blog / And we'll call it blog item slash. And then we can go ahead and add that directory here. So we'll just call it blog, or let's call it blog post. There we go. So now let's make sure that our navigation in the footer also has these. So the home is going to be just like that. The portfolio, the blog, about, page template, oops, and contact. All right. Okay. Okay, so now we are ready to copy this into our page template directory. The other thing that we have to keep in mind is on the home page, the site title is an H1, but on inner pages, the title of the site, so we'll use this as an example, contact us is going to be the H1. That means that on inner pages, we have to change the site title to a div and make sure that we're styling this as an H1. So that's another consideration. Very, very common, especially in CMSs, that you need to do that for your inner pages. What else do we need to do? We are going to have to change the path to normalize style.css and script.js because it will be one level deep. So we'll have to make sure that we are updating this. What else? And then we have to just update the individual paths for the inner pages. So once we do that one time for an inner page, we'll pretty much be set for the remaining inner pages. And then of course we'll have to do that again for the blog post and the portfolio items, which is fine. So it can be messy, but with a little bit of planning, it's fine. It's fine. Again, this is another reason why I recommend this to people, because I just think it's a really good exercise. You like really learn how the internet works when you build a static website. So, and Malik says, relaxing stream today. I am here. I am just working on some designs. Yeah, no problem. Sometimes streams are just bangers. We have lots of people in the chat, lots of questions, and I obviously love that. Like I've been literally waiting my entire life for people that ask me for advice. I love it. I think it's great. Or to just share my experiences. Ooh, one moment. Been waiting my whole life for that. And then there's other days where it's just very chill, very relaxing. People are just hanging out. And that is, I'm absolutely delighted that anybody shows up at all. So trust me, I'm not picky. Okay, so index.html, we're going to copy this into page template. Oh, and don't even get me started on 404. Wait till we get the 404 page. Oof. Okay, so there we go. We're just copying index.html into the page template. So now we're officially, you can see up here, page template, index.html. So let's make sure that we're going to have to go up one to normalize. We need to go up one to style.css, up to script.js. So now those are correctly linked. And we're going to make sure that this is a div, which is another reason why you don't style based on the element. You style based on the class. It's going to make this really easy. Also, the home page is, well, I'm just going to do dot dot slash. I don't want to do index.html because again, I want to keep that URL clean. So we're just going to do dot dot slash. And then where's our navigation? Here's our, where are you? Right here. Okay. So again, we have to update our navigation. So it's going to be dot dot slash. Oops. That's our home link. We're on the page template. So the active link is right here. It's the page template. And then portfolio. We are on page template. So I think everything is going to be dot dot slash portfolio. This is going to be dot dot slash portfolio and then portfolio item. So really all we have to do is add the dot dot slash. So we're in the page template. We're going up one into portfolio item, blog, dot dot slash. About dot dot slash. Page template is the current page, the root of the current directory. So I'm going to put dot slash, and then contact would be dot dot slash. And once we do this once, this is going to be easy to do on all the other inner pages. Not a big deal at all. Well, I mean, everything's work, right? Everything is work. And then this is just the root of the current directory. So let's make sure that we can go back and forth between page template and the home page. So here's the home page. Here's the page template. We don't have our images linked. We'll do that next, but we can go back and forth now. Oh, and look at that. We have to, so we were relying on the fact that an H1 was bold, and when we switched it to a div, we lost the bold. So that's a QA item. So we'll fix that for that class. But we can go back and forth now cleanly. So again, we don't have that index.html in the root. We don't need it, even though live server loads it, but we don't technically need it. And we're going to page template, which is just page-template slash. The browser is automatically looking in that folder for index.html, default.html, home.html. You could call that any of those things, right? So if you're let's use LAMP as an example. Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. That's my favorite little basic go-to server because it works for static websites and it works for WordPress websites. That's how I got turned on to that. And in LAMP stacks, you can have rewrite rules. You could have an htaccess file, or you could just do rewrite rules inside of the Apache virtual host files. I would encourage you to just keep a clean structure and understand the basics of what the browser is looking for when it goes into a directory or a folder, and avoid a bunch of rewrite rules. That's what we did at St. Thomas. And I remember my boss at St. Thomas was my boss for like 6.5 years, but for the first 6 months that I worked there, I didn't really have a boss. So they hired her, and she really fought the developers on the URL structure and wanted our backend team to write a bunch of rewrite rules in the CMS to like have the kind of URL structure she wanted and the kind of page structure she wanted. And we really had to like convince her not to do that. And eventually she got on board with it and we moved forward, and we spent many years being very grateful for that approach, that we didn't have to deal with all of those rewrite rules, because we had so many websites, hundreds if not thousands of pages of content spread across all of the schools and colleges websites in this CMS that we used, and not needing rewrite rules kept it so clean and so simple. So yes, occasionally there would be URLs that ended in an index.html. But because we didn't have all those rewrite rules, and because the structure itself within the CMS was so clean and neat and tidy, it just didn't make a difference. It was organic, and it was how the browser works. It was how the internet works. So I would encourage you to keep things as organic as possible. It's SEO friendly, and it will save you headaches on the back end to not need a bunch of rewrite rules. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. So yeah, this is just a road that I've been down before. And I think that this is a much, much better approach. As long as you understand how it all works. So let's update the URLs for the images. Even though we're not really going to use these images, let's just update everything. So here we are. So I'm just going to look for everything on the page with an image, and we will do ... And you can see the images directory pops up. So those should be updated now. So even though this is a page template, technically, we can just delete this and put in our kitchen sink. Let's just do that. And there's our footer. So I'm going to delete that. Here is our kitchen sink. I'm going to take out the main. And we'll put it right in there. And I'm going to make sure this is all formatted. It is. Let's see how this looks. So we have some styling to do, but that's good. That's good. That's what we want. I think the first thing we need to do is, well, our wraps go inside our sections. So, okay. So we're at a good spot here. Let's actually, before we do anything else, before we start really diving into styling, let's commit our changes. And then we're just going to dive into styling here. Let's stop. We'll just do it right here. So we updated main nav and social nav, created the page templates, git push origin main. So I think I have this all linked down in the description below. If you would like to follow along or fork the repository or just have a peek. I don't have the README in here yet. I'm getting a little lazy about my READMEs. You are welcome to do so. And there is a GitHub page for this. Nice. Look at that. So you can see, hopefully you can see my point now. Nobody challenges me on this, so I don't feel like I have to defend it. But hopefully you can see my point about why I take this approach about building the entire homepage first. Build your entire homepage first, Because now look at everything that's done. See, in the page template is highlighted. Wait, is it highlighted here too? Yeah, it is. The header, the footer, the responsiveness, tons of layout styles are done. We're going to go ahead and do these kitchen sink styles. But it's like half your website is done once the header and footer is done and everything is accessible and responsive. Yeah. It's a winning strategy. Trust me. Trust me on this one. Oops. I almost forgot to unmute. Okay. So the first thing that I want to do is fix our primary logo. Make sure that the primary logo has the bold styles. And we have two choices with this font. It's either font weight 400, which is normal, or font weight 700, which is bold. That's it. No muss, no fuss. So here's our primary logo. And we'll add font weight 700. There we go. So now when we go back and forth, seamless. The only thing that changes is whatever link is active. And like I said, you can easily write JavaScript to compare the current page link in the nav to the URL, but we don't need to do that here because everything is static. So, okay, let's take a look at this structure. So I'm going to take out the ID. I'm going to put in a class of section. And then within our sections, we're going to put in our wrap. So we'll say div.wrap. And then, okay, I'm annoyed by all the space. So I'm going to do something. Minify this document. And then format document. There we go. That removed all the space. Gosh darn it. It also minified our list items. I don't like that. So hang on. Here's what I'm going to do. But it formatted this. So I'm going to make a copy of that. Control C. And then I'm just going to Control C. Okay. There we go. All that space is removed now. Okay, that works. So now everything's inside a wrap. And then here's our next section with class of section. Everything needs to go inside this wrap. Class of section, div with a class of wrap. That's interesting. It put the video and the audio inside paragraph tags. So these must be, are these display inline by default? They must be, because you can't put block level elements inside paragraph tags, so they must be. Okay, so this is a section. With a wrap, and then we have an aside. I'm also going to give this a wrap. So now everything is nicely contained. We also need to make sure that we are styling a page title and a banner, a hero, and then we'll have the kitchen sink after all of that. So let's do I'm going to do another section with a class of section and a div with a wrap, and I'm going to say H1, and we'll call this page title, and this is the page template, and then this is, I guess, breadcrumbs. More navigation. Good. Yeah, I guess that's technically what it is, isn't it? Okay, so we're going to do a nav with the class of breadcrumbs. And we'll do a UL with a class of, well, it's not main nav. I'm just going to do a UL with an LI, anchor element. So it would be home. And then it would be the current page, which is page template. I mean, breadcrumbs are navigation, right? So they need to be inside of a nav element. We can style these in an unordered list. And we'll call this breadcrumb nav. Okay. I have mixed feelings about breadcrumbs. We loved breadcrumbs at St. Thomas. I thought they were a pain in the ass, and I don't know. I just didn't know what the I don't know. I didn't know what the point was. And also, I see breadcrumbs on a lot of sites that are absolutely pointless. Allow me to show you an example, and this is a website that I actually love and I buy a lot of stuff from. This is called Wool & Company. It's a yarn mega store, superstore in Chicago. I've never been to Wool & Company, but I have ordered many things from Wool & Company. They have so much yarn that is hard to find in other spots. But let's look at an example of how the breadcrumbs absolutely suck. So let's do let me see here. Let me think about this. Let's do Barocco is a brand of yarn. Remix Light. I have a bunch of Remix Light I really like. So now we're in here's the navigation is collections / Barocco Remix Light. So here's this big page, all the different colors. Let's say I want to buy some of the Buttercup. I go to the inner page for the Buttercup. And then look at the breadcrumbs here. I'll make this a little bit bigger. So let's say I want to go back to all of the Remix Light, and I go back in the breadcrumbs to all products. You don't go back to the, you go back to this huge, literally all products. So the only reason that the breadcrumbs are completely worthless. If you're going to go back and with breadcrumbs, you should literally go back to this page, the main archive page. This is why I have such mixed feelings about breadcrumbs, because there are a lot of sites where breadcrumbs would be incredibly helpful for navigation, but they are used in a way that make them utterly useless. Absolutely, utterly useless, in my opinion. So this is why I just think that they're kind of pointless if you don't actually have a good structure set up. So, okay, well, whatever. We're going to make sure that ours are anything but useless. They're going to be highly relevant. So, okay, so we have a page template. We have the H1. We have the breadcrumbs. Let's make sure now that we have a hero image. So I'm going to do another, it's not going to be a section, it's going to be a div. You should only be using sections when you have a heading. So all of these sections have an H2, which is perfect because we are adding our own H1. So that worked out well. So this is going to be div.hero. And we don't need a wrap because it's full width. So I'm going to do figure with a class of figure. We're going to add an image, and we have to go up one directory to the images. We need to find some more images. These are not optimized for full width, so we're just going to grab one and go with it, and we'll do maybe tomorrow we'll grab some better images. So I'm just going to say placeholder text. And this doesn't have any text or anything over top of it, so this is all we need to do, and that's just fine. And then just a reminder about accessibility and alt text. I think it's very tempting when you're doing images like this to put these in as background. And there are lots of situations where that's appropriate to put in an image in a header or a hero as a background image, but when you use background images, they are not accessible. So if that image is important to the narrative of the story or the page, and I'm here to tell you that every content creator and person on your leadership team is going to tell you that it's vital, even though it's probably not, but they're going to say that it is, make sure that you're not using background images. If you are including heroes and they're not background images, so you're doing it this way, and you still are making a decision as a team that that image doesn't need to be read out to the screen reader, you can just omit the alt text. So you don't want to omit the attribute, but you can leave the attribute blank, and this will tell a screen reader to not read this out. And that's perfectly reasonable to make that decision for accessibility, that you don't need that image for the narrative value of the page as the screen reader is traversing through the page. So just something to keep in mind, because people may not realize that it's absolutely semantic and okay, and that is how you signal to a screen reader, hey, you don't need to read this image out loud. I've included the attribute, but I've deleted the content, so skip it. Okay. Yeah, quiet chat today. So sometimes I know there are people watching, but I'm also just like, does anybody disagree with me? Because nobody's saying anything, which is fine. I'm just going to proceed as normal. So Okay. And Malik put in the chat 700. Were you referring to the font weight? Let me know if this has different meaning, but I think you're referring to the font weight. So, okay, so let's style this, and let's style our hero and get started on our kitchen sink. Oh, and this is taking on the hero styles from the home page, which we actually don't really want. Yeah, it's getting a ton of our styles from the home page. So this needs a different class. So we'll say, we're just going to call it the page hero, so we can give it some unique styles. There we go. And Malik says, yes, I prefer a higher font weight. So Malik likes bold and he likes rounded corners. We are opposites. We are opposites. Oh, and we need to choose an image that has a different orientation. But that's okay, because life would be boring if everybody liked the same thing, right? Really? I'm just only choosing the wrong aspect ratio, I guess. Hang on, where's... Oh, why is it always doing that? Let me see here. Choose the right image. Okay. Okay, there we go. So I feel like for our main section, well, we know this is an H1. Let's give this the so this is the page title. This is the breadcrumbs. What do we want to call this? The page description? So I'm going to put these styles right here. Call this the page template. And we'll start with the page description. Although I think we could just add our center class here, which I kind of feel maybe we don't even need a class here. I feel like all I needed to do was center them. Yeah, that's it. So we don't need a page description class. Page title, uppercase, a little bit of letter spacing, text transform, uppercase. I always give uppercase some letter spacing because I just think that it looks nice. And I also think that this is a font weight 400, not old. And then let's style our breadcrumbs. Breadcrumb nav. So we're taking off the padding, 0, margin, 0. List style type is none. Breadcrumb nav, the anchor elements. The color is gray. So we'll have a default color of gray, but I think the hover active focus should still be our blue with an underline. So our color will be I'm going to go with our medium gray color. We'll say text decoration color, transparent, text underline offset. I'm going to say 2 pixels, and then text, is it the text decoration line 3 pixels? Is that right? Did I get that right? Yeah, I think I did. No, text decoration. I think it's text decoration size. Text underline size. Text underline. Oh, for God's sakes, I can't remember. Text decoration thickness. So the offset 3. I'll just copy all of these. There we go. Okay, now we're good. And then let's make sure that the text transform is uppercase. Give it a little letter spacing. And then let's make sure that we'll just use I don't think we need Flexbox for this. Let's just make these the LIs display inline block, vertical align middle. It's a good idea. And then we want to make sure that we have a pipe in between. Some of our breadcrumbs are going to have 3 items because we've got inner pages. So I think it's a good idea to use a pseudo element, and then we can exclude the pipe from the last item. So let's do that. And then that will automate that process. So we'll say after, and we'll just go ahead and do content, pipe. We'll say display, inline block. Again, vertical align middle. We'll put a little margin. It's already going to, because it's display inline block, it's already naturally going to have some space on the left and right. Let's just see here. So it's already naturally putting a little bit of space on the right. So I think we just need a little bit of space on the left. So we'll say margin, left. I think it's like 2 pixels. And probably we don't want to do, we want to change the line height because it's pushing it down even though it's vertical align middle. So we'll say, I'm just going to say line height, line height 1. I think that'll even that out a little bit. I think we should make the whole thing line height 1. We don't need line height. Nothing's going to wrap. And it's still a little, that pipe is pushed down a little bit. So let's change it from vertical align to something else. I think it's also, you could easily use Flex for this. I think it's good to understand how some of these things work. I encourage you to do so. Look at all the options that you get. So if we do, what if we do top? See how much that moves that up? What if we do Obviously top is not going to work. What if we just do baseline? Didn't really change it. Bottom obviously moves that way too much down. Text top. There, text top is perfect. And I think we could definitely adjust the spacing to push that out a little bit more. So we're going to do text top to get those lined up. Get comfy with inline block. It really is a beautiful display property. And no one is here. Welcome, no one. How you guys doing? How are you doing? We are doing well. We're having just a nice chill day. I'm glad you could join us. I'm glad you're here. Okay, and then let's make sure that we don't have anything coming after. So we'll do li last, the last of type after, and we're just going to say content, nothing. So that should remove the last one. There we go. So that's automated now. You would just put in your breadcrumb nav items. CSS does all the work. And then let's adjust this a little bit. Whoops. So we want 0 on the top, 2 pixels on the left, 0 on the bottom. And then right now it's 0 on, no, this is top, right, bottom, left. So this is currently 2 pixels and this is currently 0. Let's make sure we got that right. Yep. And then let's adjust these. So that's 5. Probably just want to do 7, 8. So 5 on the right, 8 pixels on the left gives us a nice little healthy bit of space there. Love it. And entertainment is here. Hello. I'm doing well. How are you doing? Thanks for coming to hang out with us today. By the way, I think this is a good time maybe to remind people who are just dropping in. Ooh. This is day 2 of a 6-day sprint. So I will be here every day this week until Thursday. Not really working on like a special project per se. We're just working on our existing project. But yeah, just feeding that YouTube algorithm. Okay, feeding the YouTube algorithm. Yeah, so if you want to come hang out with us, oh gosh. If you want to come hang out with us this week, we'll be here every day through Thursday, and I'm planning the same thing for next week as well. And we're just here to work. We're here to work. We're here to feed the YouTube algorithm and just, you know, attempt to be productive. So that's my goal at least. Okay, so here is our page template. I am kind of thinking that for the page title, I have a feeling that we're going to want to clamp this text. We're not specifying a font size. So which means that it's getting the default font size from the browser. So what is that? It is It's getting it from normalize, which is a font size of 2 M's. So we can see here what's kind of happening on mobile. I think we should clamp it. I kind of want to give it the same clamp styles as what we have going on in our primary, minus the bold. Primary logo. So here's so let's see how this works. And maybe, well, let's just see. So it's basically the same size. It's just not bold, but it responds. Yeah, I like it. Holds up really, really well. So let's make sure that I think that we should be, what is this? I mean, I'm sure it's just font size 100%. Yeah. Let's just change the line height for the LIs. I think I did that on the anchor elements. Let's do it for the LIs. Do we have to do it here too? Do I have to do it on everything? Yeah, I do. Technically don't need it there. Technically don't need it there. All right. What about here? No, I don't think so. All right, so that tightens that up a little bit. You know, we can refine this. We don't have to stick with this, but I think for now I'm happy with this. So let's style our hero. So next we have the page hero. And hopefully you can see that once we get this page template styled, we'll be able to make the copy of this for most of the inner pages really easily. So this is the page hero. And what's our aspect ratio here? 1920 by 710. Let's see here what that is. So 1920 divided by 710, it's 2.7. So that's going to be 1 to 2.7. So we'll say width. Well, we don't need to do that on the page hero class though, do we? We do it on the figure. So we're going to say width 100%. Oops. Height auto. Aspect ratio 1 to 2.7. And then we'll say page hero image. Width 100%, height 100%, object fit, cover. I think I got my, hang on, did I get this wrong? Is it 2 points? It's 2.7 to 1. 2.7 to 1. There we go. And yeah, we definitely need to grab some new images. That's fine. We'll do that. Okay. So now we have a nice full screen hero. I like this. Yeah. And I like this image too. Really, let's just optimize some of the images that we already have. We'll do some special hero images, but I kind of like this. I wasn't sure about this navigation just floating around up here willy-nilly, but this hero image kind of anchors things. So I'm into it. Let's see how this works on mobile. I mean, I think it works. I'm good with this. It's not a good time to test mobile because the page is clearly not responsive, but from here it looks great. Do we have too much padding here? I don't know. Do we? You know what? We'll save that for another day. Let's just get going on this kitchen sink. Okay. So I'm not going to do too much with our headers. Let's definitely style the H2s. So these are so every section has an H2. I think we do have a class called secondary heading, right? We have a secondary heading and a tertiary heading. I'm not going to add classes to these because if you were working in a CMS or WordPress or something like that, these are probably things that people would just go ahead and add to the WYSIWYG, right? The what you see is what you get editor, and they wouldn't necessarily put in classes. So we're reserving classes for like these other elements that have dynamic content, but the markup is not dynamic. I would consider this to be static markup that a content creator or whoever is in charge of your building pages for your organization or your client, they would just put in H1, H2, H3. Hopefully you're teaching them how to do that correctly. So we're not going to add classes to this, and I'm not going to change anything related to the styles that exist organically in the browser for these headings. So here's a paragraph with strong text, emphasized text. Here's our links. We've styled our links. Emphasized text has italics. Strong text is bold. I'm fine with these things organically. Small text, the browser default is fine. Let's make sure that here's a block quote. Oh, and it's getting our block quote styles that we put in. So that's good. Let's make sure that we didn't do this. Let's take off the margin for block quotes. So we can take off the margin for block quotes. which we centered all of our block quotes anyways, so that wouldn't matter. Our block quotes have a max width and different styles, so that's fine. Our citations. So this citation is inside the block quote. We put ours outside of the block quote. So that's fine. I mean, our block quote styles are really specific to the testimonial slider. So I'm not going to change too much here. I think I'm just going to take the margin off of the block quotes. Right here. So, does that screw up our homepage? I don't think so. Oh, it does. It does a little bit. So maybe we want to make this a global style and then add margin back in just for block quotes inside the testimonials. I'm actually wondering if we should move all of this up. Should we move all of this up to our global styles? Because it's kind of working for us. But maybe not these. So maybe we want... No, we could move this all up. No, I'm just going to leave it. But I am going to add block quotes here. And remove the margin. And then here, we'll add our margin back in. And I think that I'll just do one rem on the top and bottom. There we go. So now we can go back to our page template. And then I'm kind of thinking that our garden variety block quotes are still going to need some... Oh, maybe it does need some margin. Well, no. How do I want to organize this? No, we can go ahead and add it to our global styles. So instead of margin, I actually want this to have some padding. I'm just going to say 1 rem of padding. And then I'm going to give this a background color of our light gray. We'll do this light gray. And then I'm going to say border on the left, 5 pixels, solid. And I'm going to add our accent color. There we go. Here's our block quote. And we have some other styles that we have to undo. So the block quotes are very, I'm going to take off these paragraph styles for the block quote, or I'm actually just going to make these. See, I like some of them, but not all of them. So yeah, we do need to move these up to be global. So this would be specific to the testimonials. So the only thing that would be different is this, because this I actually like. So this would be a testimonials. Why did you replace the whole thing? Testimonials block quote. But we're going to preserve the line height and the font size. We love this. So we're going to put this up with our global styles. And then we'll make this more specific too. Yeah, this makes sense to me. That we have some global styles and we have some specific styles just for the testimonials. There we go. Now we should be able to put in, let's put in some extra text here. There we go. So we have our opening quote, our closing quote, and our citation. And this is how block quotes generically would be styled, but we're still preserving our block quotes. Oop, we just have to undo this. But it's mostly the same. So we'll say background, color, transparent, border, none. But we're still getting, let's make sure that we're still getting our other styles. Yep, we are. So we're still getting all of our other styles. Perfect. All right. There's our block quote. Hello, welcome. Seha is here. Thanks for joining us. We're happy to have you. All right, let's keep going. And I'm rethinking my decision to leave the headings as browser defaults. Maybe we want to our accent color is accessible, so maybe we want to do something fancy with one of our headings. I'll sleep on it. I'll sleep on it. We have a lot more to go here. All right. So I'm good with our generic paragraph text here. We could make our strong text our accent color also. What the heck? Why not? I'll go right here. I think we need to just do a little bit of organizing, especially if we're going to be doing, especially since we are doing kitchen sink styles. We might do a little refactoring. I mean, I think for the most part, things look pretty tidy. Yeah, I like that. Let's make our strong text our accent color. I love this block quote. I'm into it. You could pop this in the middle of anything. We'll do that on maybe the blog post. We'll pop a couple block quotes in. So, okay, what do we have here? So we have paragraph tags with code tags, and a code tag is inline. So font family, monospace, font size 1M. Let's change, and this is all in normalize. We can leave this as is. This is, let's change this to in display inline block, add a little padding and add some background color. So I'm just going to say display inline block. So it continues to be inline, but I can add padding and margin. I just want to add a little bit of padding, like maybe 0.25 rems. And I'm going to give this a background color of light gray and just a tiny bit of border radius, like 5 pixels. So now you can see that this is pre-formatted code, not pre-formatted. This is pre-formatted text, which is a block level element. But this is just like code, a code element, right? And let's give it a little more padding on the left and right. So maybe 0.5 rems. There, that gives it a little more space on the left and right. I like it. And that automatically gave this pre-formatted text, it gave the code the same. So let's do the same thing here. So if you've got code nested inside pre, I actually don't want these styles. I want these styles to be, so if we've got pre code, I want the background color to be transparent. That's the only thing that I really, but I think we would, do we still want display inline block? I think so. And then I think I would want pre and code to share these, but if it's code nested inside pre, yeah. Well, wait a second, no. But I want pre to be display block. So display block. There we go. I mean, code tags by default are inline block. So if we have multiple code elements in here, they're all going to be inline. I don't usually put code nested inside pre. I don't usually do that. But this is what they gave us. So if we just had so let's just try this without. There we go. So let's make sure that our pre also has, it does have padding. Oh, it's getting kind of double, isn't it? So let's make, wait a second. These don't look even to me. Oh, so let's increase the padding for just the pre-element. So let's make this 0.5 and let's make this 0.75. There we go. That somewhat matches. So now we've got both scenarios. So this makes me think that we should not double up here and we can just copy some styles. Or we can do this. There we go. So we've got pre and code. We've got code and pre, and then code nested in pre. I like it. That works. We're definitely going to have to do some refactoring here. So, and let's see what's happening in the chat. So no one says, how are you able to do so much live streaming? How can you manage your time? I like to know that. I just do my best. Honestly, I just get up in the morning and I put one foot in front of the other. I mean, I only stream for a couple hours at a time. So it's just, 24 hours in the day. I sleep roughly 6 to 7 hours a night, stream for 2 to 2.5 hours. It helps that I don't really have to do a lot of prepping for streaming. I mean, very rarely do I have to really prep anything ahead of time. I don't have to really plan anything. I literally just go live and I literally just go live and code. That's it. I did have to spend some time working on the JavaScript ahead of time for the navigation for this project, and that took me a couple of days to figure out. Other than that, I just hit go live and I write the code. So it doesn't really take that much time to stream, especially if it's just a couple hours of my day. I still have plenty of time to get my other stuff done. I've got time to walk the dog and do the dishes and get my other work done. So I just made it a habit. That's the thing with practice. So don't think of this as like me streaming. Think of this as like me practicing. I kind of think you should ask yourself the question, how can I just carve out an hour or two a day, or literally 4 days a week, a couple hours to make sure that I'm practicing and working on my personal projects? That's really all this is. The streaming part of this is, trust me, it doesn't actually take that much effort. I mean, it did in the beginning because I was not always sure about my camera or my settings or whatever. But now that I've been doing it for a little over a year and a half, I kind of just hit record. So Big Chill is here and says, why don't you use React? Really, this is just practice. We're just practicing vanilla. I think vanilla is important. Actually haven't ever used React. I've used Vue and Angular quite a bit. I really like Vue and I really like Angular. If I was going to choose anything, I think I'd choose Angular, but I just never learned React because nobody ever asked me to. Never needed to do it for a job or an employer or client or anything like that, so I never learned it. The whole point of this channel is to practice vanilla. The number of junior developers that I've worked with who don't know the difference between a div and a span, who don't understand basic display properties, they spent tens of thousands of dollars on a boot camp to learn React, but they don't understand basic HTML, basic vanilla CSS. That's a problem. Not knowing the difference between display inline and display block, not understanding what a user agent style sheet is, or specificity, or inheritance. I think that's a problem. So the whole point of this channel is to just promote some vanilla and promote understanding the three things that the browser does naturally, which is HTML, CSS, JavaScript. You don't need Node. You don't need a compiler. You don't need a package manager. You don't need a library. You don't need a framework. You can build a perfectly good website, albeit static. You can do all of these things without a framework or without a library. So I'm just here to promote practicing and understanding some of the basics. So definitely not anti-framework. I fully acknowledge that you will most likely need to know React and Tailwind to get a job these days. I totally get that, but I think you need to understand some vanilla as well. So I hope that makes sense. Silence for 24 hours is here. Welcome. Silence says, what is this way of writing CSS called? I think just vanilla CSS. That's what I call it. So just vanilla CSS. Rayhan is here. Hello, Rayhan. Welcome. And yes, so I think this person is responding to me asking the question. I hope this makes sense. I think you're saying, yes, that makes sense. So this might be a good place to leave it for today. How to make vanilla. I don't understand the question. What do you mean? How to make what vanilla? Like literally vanilla from vanilla beans? No, I don't think you're asking me that. How to make a vanilla website? Right here. Here's what you need. You need index.html, style.css, script.js. You can literally build an entire website or an entire app just using those things. You can do it. You know how I know you can do it? Because I do it every single day that I get on live and I show you that you can do it. And again, this is just to promote some basic skills, to remind people that you don't need libraries and frameworks. You can take a simpler approach, but it's more than that. It's really just about practicing and reminding yourself of how browsers work and how the internet works. That's all this really is. And I know I've said this before, but I have a lot of experience working in agencies. And when you're a junior developer or a new developer in an agency, you might, but you also might not be given the brand new builds. You're probably going to be given the backlog tasks, the legacy code, the spaghetti CSS files, and it's not going to be shiny new React or Tailwind. It's going to be old, maybe a decade old. And if you have a little bit of vanilla knowledge, you understand vanilla CSS, you understand good semantic accessible HTML, and you understand some good old vanilla JavaScript, it will serve you well, I promise. That's been my experience working in agencies. The new developer always gets the old legacy backlog tasks. They're important enough to stay in the backlog, but they're not important enough to pull your top tier developers off to go work on. They always save that stuff for the juniors and the new guy. So I promise you, a little bit of this vanilla knowledge will serve you well in your career. That's my experience. So, can I connect with you on Instagram? I just found you. Funny you should ask. You can absolutely connect with me on Instagram. My handle is Angela J. Holden. I am a doom scroller extraordinaire. I'm on Instagram quite a bit. I will say I turned off my notifications for Instagram, but I'm on there a couple of times a day. So if you want to message me and say hello, you have questions about the stream, feel free to connect with me there. I would love to hear from you. This is also a good time to remind people, if you're new here, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much. The channel is growing. I'm obviously very proud of that. Like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new here. We're in the middle of a 6-day sprint. So I'm going to be here every day this week through Thursday, and I'm going to do a 6-day sprint next week as well. Feeding the YouTube algorithm. So I would appreciate it so much if you liked and subscribed. It helps the algorithm, helps push this out to more people who might be interested in this type of content. Silence for 24 Hours says, recently I've been watching videos from Sentry and their CSS battle. It's really fun watching some advanced CSS being used to build shapes and patterns. That does sound interesting, actually. ABC123 says, I am very beginner to HTML and CSS. Can you give some tips if you can? Keep watching. My best tip is to keep watching. And make projects. It's absolutely, take a course and get yourself introduced to a new idea, but the real learning comes from project-based learning. So think of an idea, build a landing page. Once you take a course and you get introduced to the structure and the syntax, and you understand some of the basic properties of CSS, that does not mean that you have learned CSS. That means that you got introduced to CSS. The real learning comes from project-based learning. And if you really want to get good at it and understand it, you need to practice it. I want you building things. I want you go out and look on Pinterest or copy another website. Build something, put those skills to work. It's a language. You need to use it. You need to practice it to learn it. And that's all we do on this channel. So come hang out with us. Come hang out in the chat. I've got, at this point, I must have over 1,000 hours of live streaming. I've got many multi-hour project videos on this channel. I've got more coming. I literally have a backlog, I think hundreds of hours. I'm behind in my editing, but I've got more project videos coming. That's literally all we do here is we build vanilla and we just build web pages and landing pages. So keep hanging out with us. Keep and start building things. So. And Rehan says, is there any disadvantage for not using React in building a website? Is there any disadvantage for not using React in building a website? It depends on the needs of the client and the project. So the thing in my experience that determines the framework that you use are the experience of the developers doing the building and the needs of the organization. There are more organizations going towards a simpler vanilla approach because it just simplifies the process and the maintenance, right? But you may work for an organization that is knuckles deep in React and everything is React. So I think it's worth knowing. It certainly feels like it's worth knowing these days, isn't it? So no, I don't think there's a disadvantage in knowing how to use React. I hope that answers that question. And ABC123 says, I think she's promoting practically building websites. Yes, the practicality of building websites. You got it. And Rehan says, speaking of internship, our college is offering a campus internship, but I don't know why they are asking us to pay money to get the internship. Isn't this wrong? And Silence is chiming in and saying, I think that's wrong. Usually companies pay you some amount as a stipend instead of asking you to pay for an internship. I would tend to agree with that. I think at the very least, internships tend to be, hey, you work for us and we won't pay you, but you'll get the privilege of saying you worked for us. And I understand that internships are often unpaid. I think they should be paid, but I understand they're often unpaid. I would question the ethics of you needing to pay for an internship. I don't think that that's right. And honestly, I would, Rehan, I would like you to go to your administrators at your college and ask why they're asking you to pay. Just go ask them. they should be able to answer that question and give you a reasonable explanation, and come back and let us know what it is. I'd like to know. So, yeah. Wow, we had a really fun day today. Let's go ahead and commit this. I need to get better at committing. Styling, kitchen, sink, HTML. All right. There we are. Well, what do we think? Come back tomorrow. We're going to continue working on our page template. I think tomorrow the first thing we should do is optimize some images for hero images. I think we should also pick a different image for this hero because we're kind of skirting some of the accessibility rules. I like this image right here, this kind of Grand Canyon-y, jaggedy rock image. I think this would work really well. So let's just re-optimize a couple of the images that we chose and swap out our heroes. I'm happy with the work that we got done today. Yeah, so we're trucking right along. So thank you. Thank you, Malik. Sorry. Oh, ABC123. I think you got Nightbot deleted your message. I'm so sorry, but you said good night and thank you for that. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for subscribing. I think I'm going to take the all caps rule off of Nightbot because Nightbot dings a lot of people for that. So I'm going to take that off because so far everybody that Nightbot has done that to was just trying to say something nice. So thank you, ABC123. Please come back. Please don't disappear because Nightbot spanked you. Everybody. Oopsies. Everybody, have a great rest of your day wherever you are. I love all you fine people. Come back tomorrow, hang out with me, and we will continue styling. Bye-bye.